It's not outside the classroom unless there's a lesson involved in some capacity here. And we're going to look at a couple of things relative to astronomy, relative to geometry, and we're going to take advantage of some of the features that we're around right now to kind of look at and examine some climate information and data and seasonal change here. So I am at the National Mall right now, and I have a piece of string that is currently tied, not necessarily tied, but fastened around two markers. And if I were to take another marker or a piece of sidewalk chalk and start going around and around and around, I would be able to trace an object and to create an object that's known as an ellipse. Well, I don't really have to do that necessarily right now. We can show you an ellipse, and we have some aerial imagery that we're going to pull up right now of the ellipse, which is actually one of the areas between the Washington Monument and the White House, and it is just off in the distance here. So an ellipse is almost like taking a circle and sitting on it and squashing it. And if you have an ellipse, you have two focal points, and that's exactly what I have right here, right with the Washington Monument behind me. My focal points are these two markers, and these focal points here, or foci, if you will, if you are a Latin student, if I take my focal points and I put them together closer, my ellipse then becomes more like the shape of a circle, where I would have one focal point. But if I spread my markers apart, if I change the distance and make it further out between my two focal points, then my ellipse becomes a little bit more flattened. And so that is how you would make an ellipse. And I'm saying and bringing this up because July 4th, not only was it our nation's birthday and a reason and a holiday to celebrate that, July 4th was an important date here from an astronomical standpoint, because the Earth, when it goes around the sun in the shape of an ellipse. We don't go around the sun, we don't revolve around the sun in a perfect circle. So knowing that, we actually have a point in time throughout the entire year where we're closest to the sun and when we're furthest from the sun. And that point when we're furthest from the sun occurs pretty much at the same time every year. It's called aphelion. A-P-H-E-L-I-O-N. And we had aphelion, the point when we're furthest from the sun, on July 4th this year. Now, one of the things that is very important as an earth science teacher to mention is that aphelion, that point when we're furthest from the sun, always occurs in July. Well, if we're farthest from the sun at the point in July, then that is an absolute reason to understand and know that we have seasons not because we get closer to the sun and farther from the sun. That has nothing to do with it. It has nothing to do with it. We have seasons because of the tilt of the Earth. So the actual point every single year that we're closest to the sun is in January, and the point when we're furthest from the sun is always in July, aphelion and perihelion. And you can use an ellipse, and we had that image of an ellipse here, and we can pull up the orbital picture here to show you what I was talking about with the Earth going around the sun in the shape of an ellipse. Well, we've got an ellipse that's here on the National Mall, right between the Washington Monument and the White House, and I showed you how you can draw and do an ellipse. Now, I'm joined by Mike Litterist, fellow Penn Stater, and the spokesperson for the National Park Service. Thanks for being here today, Mike.
My pleasure.
Now, with respect to the ellipse, was there any reason for it other than maybe from a landscape architecture standpoint or any type of park feature why we have an ellipse between the Washington Monument and the White House?
Primarily, like so much of the mall, a landscaping feature, a downtown central core amongst all of the important government buildings and the monuments and memorials to create green space in the nation's capital. So for the National Park Service, we actually take care of what's called President's Park, and that includes the grounds of the White House. The people that mow the grass and take care of the trees are all Park Service employees at the White House. President's Park also includes Lafayette Park on the north side of the White House, and then the Ellipse on the south side. And that's a place where we have major events every year, like the National Christmas Tree Lighting, the National Menorah, and the Easter Egg Roll. And the Yule Log that, unfortunately, we don't do anymore.
Oh, bummer. All right. Well, we're going to come back and look at a couple more things relative to science and some lessons. We're going to talk about how you could actually use the Washington Monument as a clock. And all of that when we return here on Outside the Classroom.